517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
This is the Star Wars Squadrons podcast, episode 12. 12th? It's March 3rd. The Calrissian Cup has just ended, and this week we're here with one of the members of the team of the champion of the Winter Major, Scalp. Thanks for being on the podcast again, buddy.
Thank you guys for having me again.
Man, this week it's just me, Timebomb here. I'm doing the interview with Scalp, buddy. I really appreciate you coming out. And it's also your birthday. Happy birthday to you, buddy.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Yeah, I know you're just coming from a birthday dinner here, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of everything to do with the Cal Cup and also the SCL here, the playoffs just coming up. It's kind of exciting. There was a play-in, too, just to get all the teams in there, right? That's how tight it was this season.
Yes, so there was a four-way tie for 8th. Those 4 teams are in a small little tournament just to determine who is that 8th seed.
How did you... So, I don't know if you know this or not, but I was in a little bit of a 3-way tie situation in the Cal Cup that then extended again into a 3-way tie.
Yes.
How did you guys just decide the tiebreaker? Now, it wasn't a 3-way tie, which does complicate it, but what was the tiebreaker for this?
So when we were sitting down to think about the structure of the league, the biggest thing that we wanted to ensure was consistent was player enjoyment. And I know, like, when I'm a competitor, if there's no strict it feels bad to be tied with somebody and not make it in because of some weird abstract tiebreaker rules.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't be like, okay, well, game length or total damage done or, any weird thing you want to put on, because that just feels bad for the players. It leaves a bad taste in their mouth. We wanted players to be in control of their fates. So if they did get in a situation like we had where there's, X amount of teams tied, we're like, okay, look, they're just going to play in. If they lose, that's on them. They had their shot to get into the playoffs, barring any weird tiebreaker rules.
And I think it is kind of tough too, because Squadrons is, sort of almost like in Premiership, in European football or soccer, like how they have a home and a home. It's just tough to figure it out when you're playing like a 1-1 in a lot of situations to keep it fair. So it is tough. Did you guys put it a one-off? Was it a 1 game then, or how did you? Sorry, what was the breakdown of it?
It is the same exact rules that the playoffs will follow, so a best of 3.
Okay, yeah, I think that's kind of the best way to go. You determine who gets the advantage with faction, I would assume.
So the tiebreaker did matter because the team with the highest medium bucals had the higher seed technically, so they got to pick faction or map.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other team got to pick the other one. So, sorry.
No worries.
I think actually we had the teams pick map. Don't quote me on that. They might have picked faction, but I seem to remember maps being picked, and the other team would have gotten faction picked in that case. So
now let me ask you, what's your personal opinion on the balance between the factions? What do you think about it?
Man, after playing in, and so I'm probably looking at this through rose-tinted glasses or whatever the saying is, right?
Yeah.
Because in Cal Cup Major, the finals, Empire took 4 games, and then in Game 5, we won as New Republic. Going into the event, we felt really, really strong about our New Republic. We dropped Game 1 as New Republic due to player mistakes. My personal opinion is that the factions are pretty close to as balanced as they're probably going to get. But that's just my take. It feels really good between the factions.
So I think there's sort of a tier difference if you follow me. So team let's say my team, Orange Squadron, let's say we're at least a tier below you guys in gray and stuff like that, and teams who are making it to that level. So I feel like we really learned that we can't win against those teams with New Republic. We really have to rethink our game. So I feel like maybe at different levels the balance may be closer. I think at the top there, there's a better chance for you guys to win with New Republic. But as it goes further down, I think it gets tougher and then kind of balances out again at a certain point. If you follow me, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it kind of may have to do with skill level at all?
That's interesting, right? Because like since day one, people have always felt that New Republic has been stronger, especially at lower levels. Um, so I can't speak for that level. Obviously, I don't play there. I haven't played there since October. But as it's very possible that faction balance is kind of skewed depending on what level of the game you're playing at. Um, but I wouldn't say that at any level, X faction is just stronger. It might be easier to use, and I guess, I mean, in some people's opinion, that might make it stronger, but there's things that the other faction can do to counter that. It's all about time optimization and what you're doing with your time and the decisions you're making, regardless of each faction.
This is an interesting point because, I've heard, I've watched your streams and I've heard you kind of talk about your like PvP philosophy a little bit, and just in sort of an abstract way, I sort of disagreed with it, sort of in the sense that you're more of like a what's in front of you, you shoot at it, and my philosophy was sort of more like you should be more stringent, like your PvP player should PvP. But I gotta be honest, like I'm like 100% away from that now. I feel like you're completely right. Like I'm like, no, it's got to be, people have to be more flex. Why don't you talk about your PvP philosophy or your game philosophy a little bit, like your approach to it?
Okay, so and this has changed like super drastically from Operation Ace in January and Cal Cup Minor into the Major. Like in the Minor, it was me and Jareen were trying to get player kills. Finkar Brunis were doing objective, and Nop was our support. Now in the Major, I was still getting player kills, but I was doing a ton of objective damage.
Yeah.
And Jareen has now swapped to almost full flex, where he is, if he's not going to shoot players, he might get taillight chip shots or whatever, right? But he's not going to be wasting any amount of time trying to shoot players unless he can get like an ion missile on somebody. The biggest change, like I haven't swapped from player killing to objective or anything like that. The biggest thing is making sure I get my kills in 3-4 seconds. So any other time I'm shooting objective until I see somebody has overextended or it's time to apply pressure to like an AI farmer or whatever. I don't ever have to kill an interceptor player unless they are harassing an AI farmer. Like if they're pushing, one of my X-Wings or whatever out, whatever, they're wasting their own, they're probably not going to get the kill on my guy unless they're double teaming. And if they're double teaming, there's nothing I can do anyway. So it's better for me to get damage or find an AI farmer, right? Like it's about when in between kills, I'm getting objective damage done, and then immediately boom, 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 kill, get back on objective damage, right?
That's what you could see it too, like more in the play, like just what I mean. I'm reviewing the games that I've played. I'm trying to watch all together. There's so much homework to do, but you can just see it that you're just so. It's like not a moment wasted, kind of in your play. You're really maximizing that time, from what I could tell. And I think that's where like that was my problem with that sort of a mindset, sort of like the in between time is what is wasted time. But man, there is not a second of wasted time from what I can tell watching you play. It's
right.
Yeah.
It's all about optimizing that downtime, man. And we've gotten like Splinter as a whole has gotten really, really, really good about our ship loadouts. Like even I saw Gas doing this as well. Like this is every team does this. They swap ships between phases. Even when it might cost them 30-45 seconds on offense.
Yeah.
And that is, phases. We were getting flips in 45 seconds to a minute on defense, right? Like we were getting flips before teams even had a ship in to do damage. So you have to find a way to transfer your builds from defense into offense, or you better be ready to swap ships before morale flips, right? It's
really
all
have
about
to,
that time optimization.
I think Gio said to me too, it's like if the phase is flipped, you're already too late on switching ships, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
you have to be ahead. I mean, like, and the same thing, you know what I mean? First of all, from the last one, the Minor, I could see like Gas, they like really were good at that, going from the opening phase into the frigate attack phase, keeping in their ships. So it was something we tried to take. We were still making an ion ship switch, which we knew it was costly, but we felt like it was just too effective the way we ran it. But it proved not to be anything from our results anyway, not quite enough. But I just want to take it back one. How is your approach different in the opening dogfight phase at all with what you're saying? More so on the offense defense with cap ship damage, though. I'm just curious, has your approach changed in the dogfighting? Like the opening?
Yes, actually. So we tried so hard to avoid double bomber on dogfight. I don't know why we tried to avoid it, but we did. So we made the swap to double Y-wing double tie bomber for the AI farm, the multi-lot Goliath. And then me and Jareen and Brunus are all burning Raider. Sorry, Brunus is doing AI farm. He'll get 1 pack and then get on Raider because there's 3 of them in the opening dogfight. So he gets one of those and gets on Raider, not marks it. He's a support. So we're masked and marked, and the Raider's dead in 10-15 seconds. Vinkar gets 2 AI packs. Brunus has gotten 1. That's flip.
Wow.
And if it's not flip, then we get player kills.
Wait, who burns shields then on Raider, or is it just...
Jareen has an ion missile.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, it gets marked, and then I'm shooting it with lasers. So ion missile hits it, I'm hitting it with lasers. It goes down pretty quick. And then we take that same exact build, we regroup on not bar support and go in and get masked. Double Y-wing with multi-lot Goliath, Jareen with the ion missile. And it's super, super effective.
Yeah, and then you guys go in and you basically focus 1 frigate usually, I think, too, if you win the opening, right?
Yes. So the biggest thing that a lot of teams split their damage, which is fine. The damage output is about the same. You're just doing it to 2 compared to 1. The thing that going for 1 allows you to do is you're gonna get that additional 15 morale boost if you can get it down in 1 phase. And you're going to deny them 1 half of the map to resupply from. So you get that 1 frigate down, and then you can maybe get a pick on a bomber, and that's going to be 50% damage on the other frigate. So instead of getting 2 down to half, you're getting 1 dead and the other down to half.
Yeah.
Right.
And do you guys take the shields down on both? Because that's the only drawback, I would think. If the shields aren't down on 1, then I guess it might not be. Unless you're tagging the one that it's on, that you're tagging then the... you know what I'm saying with the passive damage there?
We only get the shields down on the one that we're attacking.
Right.
The passive damage will get the shields down on the other one. It doesn't really matter because by the time that we destroy the first one, shields due to passive damage are going to be done on the other one, and then we're going to be getting it down to 50% either way. So we're not really missing out on damage. The passive damage isn't enough to really like spend enough resources getting those shields down, because like if Jareen or Brunus hop over there to ion missile it, that's 5-10 seconds. They could have just been shooting the other frigate.
And it really comes back to what you're saying about time optimization. And yeah, just you explaining it right there definitely sounds like that's the most optimized approach to burn it there, actually.
Right. Like every single offense we had, outside of like 1, I think game 3 on Firestar was really rough. Gas did a really good job countering our dogfight win. But every single offense we had where we got in, we were getting through a frigate and a half every single time. We were winning the game in 2 phases for the most part.
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting because for us, we were winning. I think we only lost 1 or maybe 2 of like whatever 15 dogfights, 16 dogfights, and we were close. We were losing on New Republic a lot against these even match teams. So it's just funny, you know what I mean? We couldn't, even though we were winning so many the opening doesn't translate into wins like I feel like it did a month ago. I don't know if you disagree or agree with that.
So it does translate into wins if you're able to immediately get that damage done. If you are winning the dogfight, then backing out to swap ships, congrats, you've wasted a minute of your offense, they're flipping, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about winning the dogfight and immediately, like, without delay, going in and getting damage done.
Okay, so we are wasting our first attack after that win. Got it. Noted. There. Thanks. Now let me ask you about on defense, burning the Corvette and Raider. What is your approach there? What do you guys think?
Okay, so we would burn it the second it spawned, and it was dead in 10 to 15 seconds. So we're limiting the 200 whatever DPS that it does. We're getting the 20 the 20 morale, and then by that time there's been 1-2 AI packs farmed. We're at 75% morale in 30 seconds. So
basically, it's almost like you guys are having the same approach with the Corvette or Raider as you do off the start.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically, just get it as a team, kind of work it. That's a great adjustment. I think that I'm gonna take forward and with their team. We had an approach, but I feel like it was less by committee and more like one person strips and one person finishes, so everyone else is on defense. And maybe that's not the best optimization of time, though. Just like you're saying, just thinking about it that way.
Right. Like a lot of people and a lot of teams are like, we need somebody doing ion damage. And then I even get guilty of this too. If I see the Raider shields aren't down, I don't shoot it. But like if it's marked, if you like supports are so critical, man, at the highest level if they're playing properly,
Yeah.
right? Like if it's marked, it doesn't matter if I've got ion weaponry or not. Those shields are going to be down really, really quickly. So, we've got ion missiles on the team, and if they can't get their ion missiles in, then whatever, I'm just going to shoot it down. It doesn't really matter. A lot of teams are having one guy do the ion damage and then do nothing else to it. That's wasted damage.
Interesting.
Right.
So you think an all-out ion ship is unnecessary?
Yes, because once the shield goes down, what are you doing?
Yeah, you have to switch ships, and then, again, back to
Right.
your point, you're losing 30, 45 seconds doing that now.
Right, and even if you're going for like ions on Y-wings, you're not gonna. If you're running all ions, you're gonna kill them. No, like you're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna make them annoyed or whatever. But
Or you have
they're
to
gonna
get
call
a
for
second
backup.
person to come in, and then that person is pulled off from something else. And yeah, you made the case to me here. I definitely am rethinking a bunch of strats.
Right,
for sure.
right. And this is something that Gas did. They had Shazam running Ion Lasers, Ion Missile, if I remember correctly. I think he had a quick lock as well. He may not have had the Ion Missile. I don't remember his exact loadout, but he had Ion Lasers. So him and Skell, I want to say, were dogfighting buddies. So Shazam was ion lasering like Fenkar or whatever, and then Skell was in the area. But that wasn't always the case. Like Skell wasn't always there. Skell was doing objective damage because the shields were down and they needed to catch up on objective damage, right? So Shazam was struggling to finish those kills off with just the ion lasers because here I am coming to protect Fenkar, right?
So that's actually interesting. So when you're on the cap ship attack phase, are you thinking a little bit more protection or less cap damage, or is it still just opportunistic when it's there, you take it?
On offense, I do less peeling than when I'm on defense. On defense, it's super critical to keep your bombers up, regardless. Even if you got once the Raider goes down, we like me, Jarena Brunis are farming AI. Fenkar is staying in the bomber, but we've got our interceptors and fighters farming as well, unless there's an easy pick. So on offense, it's kind of the same thing. We're doing objective damage, and then if I see a bomber has gotten aggressive to get more creep, I go get the kill. If we can get an ion missile on him, we get an ion missile on it. It's hard to explain verbally, but every second you're spending looking for somebody or chasing somebody is a wasted second, right?
I can see it. I mean, I can see it from your overall strategy and how it works for sure. I'm like, yeah, I definitely see that the place for it. So, are you even saying like you will hunt AI over like chaffing or something?
Yes, absolutely. Their damage doesn't matter. Their damage,
or
is
even
irrelevant.
shooting down. Oh, their damage doesn't matter. So even shooting that, let the missiles come, let it all go, basically.
Yes. The only thing that limits damage is the morale bar.
It's kind of a good
damage
point.
doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
people are so focused on, PvP. Actually, at a certain point, people were really focused on getting the kills. Then at a certain point, they were really focused on stopping the damage from coming. And then kind of now you're taking this level. I was like, forget all that. What did that happen? The only thing you can control is this morale bar.
Right.
So stay alive and get the AI, and you're gonna get it flip faster than anything. Is that basically?
A lot of people. Well, so it's gray, right? Like it's not always only go for AI. Like there was a few times in the major where I saw there was an X-wing that had 20 HP but full shields, and that X-wing was trying to do damage or whatever and wasn't paying attention to me. So I was like, okay, I can get a few shots on, get the kill, and I'd hop off of whatever I was doing to get the kill and then get back onto what I was doing. So it's you're doing things to get morale until you see that a player's made a mistake, and then you get the kill on that player. But if it's a big ego check, because if you start shooting them and then they immediately get evasive and they're not dead, you got to get back off of whatever. You can't continue to shoot them. You got to get off, right?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's one of like the, when you start out, you're playing with new people, it's one of the things you don't overextend, but it's like to the nth degree, what you're saying is like, it's such like, you can't not even forget overextending. You can barely extend is what you're saying because you just lose time.
Right. Like if it takes me 20 seconds to kill somebody, I've done nothing. I've gained less morale than I would have gained otherwise. So if I can get that kill in 4 or 5 seconds, then I do it. If I waste the 4 or 5 seconds and I don't get the kill, whatever, I didn't get the kill, I tried, get back on AI.
Oh man, it's almost like you need more of like a morale per second monitor almost, or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you're getting more morale per second than they're getting damage per second, you're winning the game.
Oh, that would be such a I mean, it's so hard to see, but to make a video almost that just showed like that, like, you know, if you took like a Fenkar gameplay and you just showed like his morale kind of going up versus the other side, that would be such an interesting to see the morale bar battle kind of in that way, and you could kind of see it, you could visualize it a bit more.
It's really, really hard to balance the PvP, PvE gameplay, right? But I had one game that I've been super, super proud of. It was game 4 in the finals. I went 8-1-1 with 44,000 cap ship damage and a TIE interceptor. Yeah. So like it's, you know, I'm getting 8 player kills, which is a lot of player kills, especially against, you know, one of the best teams in the game.
Yeah.
But I'm also getting, you know, 40-50,000 cap ship damage in my downtime.
I think, you know, we were talking to Fenkar afterwards in our Discord, and he was kind of saying there was one, you know, he's talking about this, the opportunistic, the optimizing that time, and he was saying, I think this was the game he was referencing too. Did you kill like a bunch of bombers in this game, and when they were on their way in?
Yes. So we would get a frigate, and then I'd immediately, after we destroyed that frigate, so we dump all our damage into one frigate and then pull off to get the other one. In that transition phase where we've got, because we typically would get their first frigate down by the time they're about to flip. So we've got 15 morale. If they get an AI pack or 2, they flip.
Yeah.
So I immediately turn, and bombers are so focused on trying to get the AI farm because they're about to flip, they don't realize I'm there, and I get the kill on a bomber. And I think in that game, on our first offense, I got the kill on 2 of them. I'm not sure, but I always look for the bomber in between our damage, right? So we're moving from one frigate to the next frigate. Let me see if I can get a bomber. And even, you know, while we're all doing damage to that first frigate, if a bomber presents itself to be killed, I'm going to try and kill it. If I get it down to 20 HP and it gets out, whatever, let me get back on damage, right?
That's very, and no, I'm sorry, I don't want to also say, you know, you're in an interceptor. I'm to the TIE interceptor, game 4, so TIE interceptor, and you're doing 44k damage. Now, I've been kind of talking to some people about your power management here. It's a different style. It's not really a style that we've seen people use. Well, sort of. It's sort of like a shunting style. Now, I want to ask you about your setup, though, because I find this is another thing I've kind of been talking to people about, basic power management versus advanced power. You're on controller using basic power on a PC?
Yes.
And do you use anything to make your max like power maximize with a single click?
No, I have to double tap to shunt to lasers.
Okay, I mean, just to like not even shunting, just like to maximize power, maximize
okay. So if I want to get power engines, I tap left on the D-pad.
Okay, yeah. So you're using traditional basic power management, and so you have nothing else. Okay, so you know this has been something that people have talked about for a bit. Basic power management versus advanced power management. Do you think there's an advantage between the two?
I think because Fincar's been trying to get me to swap, and I'm just stubborn, so I'm like, no, I don't want to. But I think it's a 10% overall energy boost if you use APM. But that being said, it doesn't make up for situational play and situational awareness. So
yeah, I don't think that's enough. I think in the dead drift times it was maybe more necessary. I think post dead drift, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that 5 or 10% is that big of a deal, to be honest.
It's more necessary for ships with less energy, like, you know, the objective ships and the bombers and stuff like that. On an interceptor, it's totally negligible.
Interesting. So I think so the problem is, though, on controller, if people don't know, is that, like you're saying, you have to hold or do like a double tap thing to max it out, there's no double tap option. You have to hold it to max the engine power, and that's the difference. Whereas people on PC on keyboard or HOTAS or basically can just tap a button to maximize engine power. Whereas if you did it, you'd have to use like an app, and then it would like also have a delay of timing as it goes through the app and then back to the program. So there's no ideal setup for basic power management.
That's for
advanced power management.
Right.
Sorry, yeah.
So my biggest sticking point for people that are like, I need advanced power management to succeed, is they're just wrong. Like it doesn't, like I don't use it, right?
Yeah.
And there's things you can do on other ships that make it not as necessary, right? Like it doesn't make up for the situational awareness, the situational play, being in the right place at the right time, doing something, you know, every segment you're on the field. There's, you know, if you're not succeeding, regardless of what power control scheme you use, is because you're playing suboptimally, and there's ways to optimize your play.
100%. And I mean, at this point in the game, there's so many there's so many guides. I mean, look, the stuff that Fenkar is putting out is like, I would, if someone just started the game, I'd be like, watch this. This is how you're gonna play, and in 2 weeks you're gonna be pretty darn good at this game. I feel like you could be like, you're just missing the team play and the tactics a bit at that point. You know what I mean? Which will come in time, but you're gonna get the game so much faster, I think, from what's available.
Right, 100%.
And sorry, I should also mention you had the boost gas video first, which was also huge.
Boost skipping.
Oh, the boost skipping. Sorry,
yeah, I don't. I have still yet to learn boost gas. Actually, so,
sorry, the boost skipping video. You're right. My mistake. So, you should actually talk about. You're kind of using this shunting though to basically keep your power. It's basically like you're kind of putting it all into lasers and then going back and forth from engines back to lasers a lot to just keep it fully charged all the time and get that damage output. Right? Is that what I'm basically seeing?
Right, so I'm using my lasers to charge my boost. So I'm always drifting and dead drifting. Very similar to what you would do before the patch, but it works just as well. Like, it's hard to predict the movement. It's hard to predict the pinball. It pinballs as hard as a defender did before the defender got the power management hit. It's that powerful. So basically, all my power is in lasers. So I'm always dead drifting. I'm always recharging my lasers when I'm not shooting them. When I need to boost, I shunt to engines, boost drift, shunt back to lasers to get the recharge. So it's boost gas being for dummies on a TIE interceptor.
Yeah, and I've been kind of messing around with it. I just feel like it's so much tapping on that X button. Like, every time I'm drifting, I'm like tapping, double tapping, then tapping. Is that basically it? And then boosting?
Yeah, basically.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you do that all over the place. Like, I played, like, for the last day, I've played, like, quite a few games messing around doing that. And it is not for me. I thought it was. Well,
it's okay. So
this is the thing.
If you fly, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you fly TIE bomber, you know, one of the ships that can shunt, it is the single best way to play the game. I don't like, that's just full stop. You know, I'm always shooting fully overcharged lasers and I'm pinballing all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, I guess I just find it, the movement is just weird to me. I guess to just be doing that constantly that way, I guess, like constantly just throwing the engine back and forth, like every boost and drift. It feels so, I guess I guess you get into the rhythm of it when you do it long enough. What do you think?
Right. Yeah. So just work on, you know, when you got to boost, shunt to engines, boost drift, shunt back. Right. Like, you don't have to worry about your power management. Even my power management's always in lasers, unless I've made a mistake and I need to recharge some boost real quick, and then I immediately go back into it. It's a lot of shunting, so it's different from like the rhythmic power management, you know, engines to lasers, back to engines, right? It's more on the shunt side of things.
Yeah.
So, you know, a little bit of practice, spend some time with it, and you should start to develop like, oh, okay, I see how this is meant. Because even when I first started doing it, I hated it. I was like, this is stupid. I do not like this. But now it's like very clear that this is the only way to fly a TIE interceptor.
Well, that's kind of reassuring to hear you say that. Basically, I kind of get it. I get it for playing like the objective. I just don't understand how you transition into kind of being PvP. Do you know what I'm saying at all? Like,
right. It's so, you know, you orbit objective ships. You kind of have to develop the aim and muscle memory to orbit players. And this is how I got a few of those bomber kills. There was some just like parallel drifts while they were flying and shooting the raider. I was drifting right beside them, you know, dead drifting, just shooting them. Right. It comes with time, really. I play like 8 to 10 hours every day. Right?
yeah. I'm not quite at that many hours a day. Maybe that's it. And I mean, I'm not a PvP player, but I'm just trying, you know, I just thought it was interesting. I'm like, oh, I'm on controller. Like, this is definitely a technique that I can learn. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is the technique for me right here. Maybe just something different. I mean, playing a support ship, I can't really use it, but it's nice to just understand a different technique that you haven't seen that way. I guess too, the other question I have is like, I just feel so dead when I'm actually drifting and shooting someone. I don't feel like I feel vulnerable still, I guess, in that position, or I'll stay on it too long. So, like, I'm not even, you know what I mean? I'm holding the drift almost too long.
Gotcha. So, I actually, the other day, I felt really, really clean doing it. Like, the best flying I've ever had. It's all about, you know, 1-2 seconds on target, shunt engines, drift, 1-2 seconds on target. Right. Like, you got to maintain that pinball, that constant flow, because if you start to apex on your drifts, you hold it for 3-4 seconds, their aim's gonna line up and they're gonna get shots on.
And I think that's the problem, is that I get too like greedy almost. I see the kill right there in front of me, maybe, and I just want to stay on the lasers that much longer rather than go back and keep.
Are you running stealth and repair on your tie in terms of auxiliaries?
Yeah, so I'm using the repair and the jammer.
Gotcha. Okay, so what I do is when I'm going for a bomber kill, I pop the repair on entry into the shooting rather than on exit, and that kind of acts as my timer. So I stealth in, get shots on target. My stealth runs out after 5 seconds. Once that's out, if I'm getting shot, I gotta go. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought it was amazing for objective. Like I would, you'd basically just like skip in there, kind of, then do my dead drift, start shooting, just pinball around. Like it was working pretty well there. I was like, okay, this makes sense. But then if someone shoots me, you just basically hit those as like an oh shit button to escape. And I really liked that. I was like, this is pretty cool. But if I actually wanted to engage with someone, yeah, it wasn't happening for me. It got real messy.
It's a lot of like. And I mean, I've been, PvP since October, right? I've got 1,000 hours in the game fighting players. Only 2 weeks ago did I make the adjustment to start adding the objective damage in. So I've got 30 hours, however much you want to say, on player killing, and just repped the situational awareness, the muscle memory to dance around players who are dancing around me, right?
Yeah, and I guess because, I mean, you are always using this, like you're always using this technique, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, for me, I just like, I'll fall back to old habits too. It's so hard to just stay consistent with it, which you really just have to just keep flying around that way. But the potential is there. I feel like this could maybe be like, definitely the main, like a new dead drift, not a dead drift per se, but you know what I'm saying? Like a new flight technique that could really spread if people really pick it up after the tournament now.
Right. I've been saying for a while now, like, TIE Interceptor is borderline broken, and it seriously probably needs a patch. I guess this applies to all ships that can do this. Like, this needs to be looked at seriously. Like, please, somebody do it, because if everything else is balanced, this is going to become the new Defender, right?
We were going in thinking there would be, like, no interceptors. There was a lot of interceptors in the Cal Cup. The Interceptor is back. The TIE Interceptor is back big time, for sure. I was surprised.
I think a lot of it is due to people just not being comfortable in a Defender anymore, because it's still really strong for those that know what they're doing with it, but if you don't like have the situational awareness to get out for however long it takes to recharge your shields, if you stay in and try to press the issue, you're gonna die, and you're gonna die a lot. TIE Interceptor kind of makes up for that, but if you're not flying it this way, it's still going to get outclassed by an A-Wing. If you're flying it this way, you're going to beat every ship on the field.
I mean, for myself, because I'm not... Before this, I was just kind of just like... I would kind of shunt over to get a bunch of... get my engine, just boost in, shunt back to weapons, do some damage, then get out really quickly. That was kind of my approach before when I messed around on Interceptor, but this allows you to just stay in and engage a lot more and do cap ship damage when you do it. I don't really like the potential of this, man. Very cool to see that.
It's really, really powerful. It's if people want to remove me from the field, I've got to have more than 2 tails. Especially with not masking, right? Yeah. Like I'm stealthed 70% of the game, and then there's nothing you can do about it. And when I'm not stealthed, I'm bouncing around like a Defender, all the time.
Yeah, it's I mean, masks are obviously OP for a support ship, but, the jammers, not around like they used to be, that's for sure.
Yeah, man. Every time I see, and this is going to sound really bad and really ego or whatever, but every time I see a TIE Interceptor that's running quick locks or barrage rockets, I want to bang my head against the desk. Like, please, if you fly TIE Interceptor, run repair, run stealth. It'll make your life so much easier, right? Like,
I mean, and I think the only reason people don't is because it can be hard to get the kills without, like, without a missile or something. The quick, you know what I mean? Like, you just have to your aim just has to be so much better. And I think that may be a discouraging factor for some people, or people want the kills and they don't think they can get them without it. But they don't see the importance of prolonging their life or being stealth, I guess. I'm digging the Church of Scalp right now on this.
I've got a ton of hot takes. So, But yeah, like the biggest thing with that is they're focusing on the wrong thing. They're focusing on the kill rather than focusing on their uptime.
Mm-hmm.
If they're chasing kills, they got next to zero uptime on how to actually win the game, which is the objective ships.
Yeah,
So
I swear, when this game came out, Fleet Battles was still like pretty PvP. Well, after they dealt with the AI farming issues where you could AI farm, then it was a really hard PvP game. But I swear, the longer this game is out, the less player kill is a factor. And it's like in 3 more months, all games are just going to be 0-0-0s, and it's just who can cap ship damage the fastest or something.
well, we're at the end of this month away from that. Splinter's figured something out. I don't want to go, but
shoot.
yeah, I've been talking to Ian, and I'm trying to get it patched before that tournament. But we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, we got 2 tournaments coming up. We got the Spring Minor. Is Splinter entering it? I don't. Well, you guys
not the minor,
right? Okay.
Depending. So I don't know how the tiebreakers are going to work for October for teams that are secured. If points are a big deal, we might fly in the minor just to get some points, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, because I thought you guys had clinched the grand finals thing now, but it still comes down to points, I guess, for it.
Well, we don't know. So we're secured a spot in the final one in October. I don't know, like if if there's 8 teams in, how does seeding work?
I see what you're saying. So if that does totally make sense then. I would think, yeah, I see what you put. 1 versus 4 could be a big deal then in the seeding. So you're right, it is something to consider then. Then the Operation Ace is after that. I would assume you guys are probably flying that one, though.
We are flying in that one,
yeah.
Yes.
So that'd be interesting to see then. We'll see what happens later in the month. And it's good that you are, letting them know about that. The problems are going to be fixed, possibly.
It's really stupid.
The other thing, well, I mean, we probably would have seen it this weekend if more people know, so that's good. It's not out there yet. I also want to talk to you about the SCL season here a bit. I wanted to ask you how, we're kind of at the end of it. What are your thoughts? How did it go so far?
Man, it's been mind-blowing. The community response to it has been really, really, really great. My one regret is that we couldn't compensate for more teams. Our biggest fear was going into it. We didn't even expect to fill out 10 slots in the league, right?
Wow.
Filling out 20 within 2 hours of announcement was pretty crazy. I was
blown away how fast it was. Like, we barely even had time to. We're like, could we do this? And then it was like filled. We're like, wow, okay.
Oh, we were too, man. We really did not expect the amount of, or I guess the level of response that it received. And then operations have flown, very smoothly through season 1. So very, very fortunate for that. There's a few things that we're looking at for season 2, but getting into the playoffs now, it's been really, really great. The community is, blown me away with how much they enjoy flying in it. So
yeah, and it's really cool. You've been casting, 75% of the games all year too. How do you like casting?
Man, this was my introduction to casting. I had not cast before SCL, so it's been a lot of fun. I've had arguably as much fun casting as I do flying in comp games. So
oh man, yeah, Squadron's such a small community, and you're one of the leaders of the community, one of the biggest streamers. So, anytime you can kind of shine a light on these different players, it's pretty awesome. I think everyone loves when you're casting them. It's such a, I don't know, it's a big part of the community. So I think everyone appreciates that. Are you going to be doing any more casting for any other events, do you think?
Well, so the problem that I have been having internally, because Twitch is my job, is flying in events the better business decision, or is casting events, right? So now it's like, okay, SCL season 2 is coming up. I could step back from staff and fly in it if I wanted to, but it's probably better for me to cast SCL. I want to keep flying competitively, but casting is really, really fun too. Like it's one of those decisions that is coming up that I'm gonna have to make, and it's probably gonna err towards flying for the most part, but we'll see what happens.
Some more casting opportunities on the SCL. Interesting. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. But that's really cool. I always like watching you cast as well. So I'm looking forward to the playoffs here. We've got just bringing up the matchups again here. I thought it was funny that the 2 crate teams ended up having to play each other.
Brunus is so excited about that, man. I really, if you're looking to get into the SCL, do not watch that matchup. Please take it from me. Don't watch it. It's going to be terrible. strictly due to not because of the teams. Love the teams. Brunus, that community is a bunch of meme lords. So Brunus is gonna have a heyday with that one. It's gonna be a really bad look. Yeah, just stay away, please.
But for the crate community, they will be loving it. That's for sure.
The crate community absolutely will be loving that matchup. So
then we got Gray Squadron Cheese versus Rancor. I mean, it's so funny because I have never really played against Gray Squadron Cheese like ever. So it was the first time we ever saw it. No one on our team has really ever flown them except like Geo too. So it was such a first time. They are such a strong team. I was just so impressed by them. They're really great.
Cheese Squadron's great. Rancor Squadron's really good too.
They're a great squad too. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take anything away from them. I was just so impressed by Cheese.
No, right, absolutely. We got a lot of fun matchups coming up, and then it's kind of funny. These play-in matchups, it's like they're playing for the right to play randos round one. So, I mean, an upset could always happen. Like anything is possible. We just kind of chuckled about that internally. It's like, okay, well, maybe they'll take it. If they take it, I honestly, as much as I love the Randalorians, I really hope that 8 seed gets the upset. That'd be probably the craziest thing to happen.
I don't know if it's because I'm Canadian. Apparently, we love underdogs or something. But I always want an upset. Like always. Like it's so
underdog.
Weird
Right.
Yeah, I'm just always like, did they win last time? I want a new winner. Like that's basically it, Like unless unless it was like, unless I was our best friend or something, someone you're really rooting. But I just love to see the competition, and I think that's what's so great now about the SCL. We're gonna see, a whole new level of strats over the next little bit here too, leading up to these next things. The level of competition in Squadrons right now is probably at the highest that it's been.
Yeah. It's been even like we were talking about this in Splinter. Like us now would absolutely just dumpster us in the Cal Cup minor. Like our improvement has been tenfold what it was, then, right? And then there's teams that we played in the minor that we, beat really hard, and in this event, they played us really hard, and it was like, man, so we've improved this much, but they've improved exponentially more than that, right?
Well, looking at the minor, just the community as a whole, we were so young then. It was just not that long ago, but just like there was teams who didn't know about chaff, like in the minor.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
And now you're saying chaff's out. You're like, what about? Who cares about chaff? It's just like, look how quickly this game changes.
It's pretty crazy, man. It's wild. I guess like the biggest thing is the competitive community wasn't really competitive back then. It's getting more and more competitive as time goes on, as more tournaments happen. Like tournaments are forcing the meta to develop. Like Op Ace, the first Fleet Battle tournament into Cal Cup Minor, like not too long after that, if I'm remembering properly. So they were close.
It was like December 28th and then January 4th, so like weeks apart. Yeah.
Right. We hadn't had a ton of time to develop legitimate fleet battle strategies, but now that everybody on a weekly basis is flying in SCL against other, competitive teams and watching those events happen, and then also flying in monthly tournaments at the end of it, for pretty decent prize pools, teams are like, okay, let's figure out how to win. Right. And that's becoming more and more of the attitude.
Well, that's the thing too, because like another matchup here, Remnant and Royal Guard, Crimson Flight, Remnant, they used their sort of B-wing strategy in an SCL game, and then ended up using that strategy again in the Cal Cup Major, kind of refining it from that point.
Right. It's been really cool to see teams try and develop their strategies in what is relatively a low stakes environment in the regular season of SCL, and using those in tournaments.
And that's actually interesting too, because at the Orange Invitational, that's when I first noticed I'm seeing the Space Whales versus Aces 5. Both of those teams, they were focusing one frigate. Well, I'm considering Space Whales sort of a branch of Splinter, even though it's only partially. But still, like both of these things were focusing one frigate. That was the first time I saw it, and as well focusing targeting, which I thought was pretty interesting. I didn't really talk about that earlier, but what are your thoughts on the targeting?
So even still, people aren't using targeting properly. Targeting is good if you can get it first phase, but it's not good if you can win in the first phase. So the way that Splinter approaches this in terms of cap ship offenses, if we're not probably going to get through both frigates on our first offense, so we're going to get through 1.5, we're going to play defense. We're going to get that extra half frigate for free on our next offense and immediately go into the flagship. Our thing is disabling them because they're down for a minute. A minute is essentially a full phase against a good team. Like that's all the time you got. So it doesn't matter if you destroy them. So we mark it and then we get an IM missile into it. And then we look at the morale bar. Is the morale bar greater than 75% or lower than 75%? If it's greater than 75%, great. Get power, win the game. You can win in one phase. If it's not greater than 75%, make a judgment call. Do you try to go for the win and then get targeting at the end, or we just get targeting and then get damage done? That's kind of our look. You only get it in that first phase. On your second attack, you're winning the game. You're not going for targeting, you're winning the game. And still a ton of teams are going for targeting on their second flagship offense rather than their first. And they're missing a good 10% HP damage because of it.
Damn. Okay. Well, I'm going to re-listen to that like 10 times probably to understand it fully, but I think I get it. It was, you know what it was? It was the math that really broke it down, or the math that threw me a little bit when you're like 75% this. I was like, this is so Fenkar right here. Just like if 75
off on me.
if 75%, then we do this. If it, you know, I was like, that is such a Fenkar thing right there. Right. No, that's a great way to think about it though, and I'm definitely gonna rejigger some thoughts about targeting there and when should be taken out. I think we may have been thinking about like it was more important to take it out on the ISD for us because we had longer attacks against them and have more trouble with the shield gen. That was kind of more of our approach, more
right. So,
lots more simple than what you just said there.
My stance is like targeting is win more, if that makes sense. So it's good against teams you're already going to beat, and it's not good against teams that you're going to struggle to beat.
Yeah, counterpoint that if you are against a balanced attack that may be prolonged, can help mitigate some of that passive damage. That's my only counterpoint really for it.
Yes, so it does mitigate the counter or the passive damage, but it only matters if you get it in your first first offense.
Yeah, you know what? Right? That's a new consideration for me. You're right. Yeah, because when it's
and then sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, please continue.
Tack onto this, if you did not win the dogfight phase and you're a phase behind, you don't go for target. Because that's 10% of damage. You can't play 2 defenses on your flagship because you're going to lose the game. You can only play 1 defense ever at most on your flagship. That's how you have to think of it in terms of total game time. Now, you could play great defenses and get, you win 2 defenses on your flagship. But for the most part, when you're looking at a game, you've only got 1 defense on your flagship. So if you have already played defense on your flagship before you have offense, you have to win in that offense. Regardless, right? You don't have shield gens, doesn't matter, got to win the game. So you don't ever go for targeting in that situation. It's only to prevent the other team from getting it low enough to out of phase in their first offense. So you're ahead in the game. You can afford to miss 10% hull damage to get targeting, but you're betting on playing defense. Going for targeting is a bet for defense rather than a win. And that's my stance.
You know what? And I like that because it's like, it's like I don't like sacrificing an AI farmer off the start to have ions ready for the frigates. It's like hedging your bets kind of a thing. I don't like those. I want you want to have the bombers to secure the win kind of a thing. That's my approach. Right. And that totally fits in. That makes more sense.
I'm gonna give you a nuclear hot take, like scorching hot, like terrible take. Ready?
Oh yeah, dropping the sound effect now for our new scorching hot take section. Here we go.
Okay, so you're going in on you've moved through frigates, your first attack on the flagship. You mark it, you get the shield gen disabled at the beginning. All right, 1 minute, free damage, whatever happens. You can win the game in that 1 minute easily, really easily, if you know what you're doing. So you should never have more than 1 attack on a flagship, against, depending on how the attack goes. The other team could play great defense, stuff you, whatever. But, if you on your first offense decide to kill targeting, you're missing out 10 HP. You play defense, okay, their flagship's at 20% rather than 10%. You could out of phase it on their first offense, right? Like, it's going for target. I was for it. I didn't get it. I was for it, and now I don't get it again, right? it's kind of weird how that works.
I know what you're saying, and I feel like, because that's funny that you were for it earlier, because I feel like no one was for targeting up until like at some point in January. All of a sudden, people were into targeting.
Right. So that's what I meant. Like early on
Yeah.
in like November, December, I didn't get it. I was like, targeting is useless. What does it even do? Then we are like, oh, it prevents like 10% passive damage. Okay, cool. So get targeting on your first offense, don't get it on your second. But now I'm kind of back in the camp of just win the game, don't go for targeting.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You have to use it, and I think your approach makes sense. You have to use it to win the game. Otherwise, don't use it if it's too late, basically.
Right. It's better, and this is what we do. If we go for the win, like we get power, we get damage done, and we're at like 30% and they're flipping, mark it, dunk an eye missile into it, disable it for a minute, because their offense is only going to last a minute 10 seconds, whatever, doesn't matter.
I didn't understand that. You had said that earlier. That totally makes sense, actually. I didn't realize, because that's what you're saying, the attack phases. That's a really good approach, actually, something I've never considered at all. Like, disabling it at the end of phase. And there's times, where we've been like, get targeting. That's what, you know what I mean? And it's like, forget getting targeting, because it's kind of beefy to take out sometimes, but beacon it and throw them. Yeah, you're right. Just disable it. Yeah.
And that's kind of our stance on all subsystems, right? Like, why destroy it? Why spend 5-10 seconds shooting it when I could just do one pass, dunk an ion missile into it, easy win, shoot other things, right? Like, just disable everything. That's my stance. So now there's a time and place for destroying things, but there's a lot there.
Kind of too. I wonder, there's something to be said too for casting all of the SCL games, because not all, 90% or whatever you are casting, you're seeing so much Squadrons too. You're learning, like you're basically like doing research for Splinter kind of too, because you're seeing what other top teams are doing.
I actually don't look at it that way. Interestingly enough, like I know what Splinter's plan is. And then we scrim teams and we see that plan in execution. I don't base our strategy off of what other teams are doing in games, because like the meta could change from the game I cast in a week to like we scrim cheese the day before Calcup Minor, and we did a full dogfight strategy revamp into going into the major. Like we scrimmed them the day before. We're like, hey, this one thing is very weird. Why are we doing it this way? Let's change it up going into the major. Like I didn't see that from another team, in a cast. When I'm casting, I'm more focused on trying to be entertaining and trying to convey the narrative of the game, rather than like, oh, hey, Randalorians are running, 4 TIE bombers. What are we doing?
Yeah. That's kind of tough to do. You're right. You kind of gotta just call it as you see it.
Right. And even like, and I guess maybe I'm, subconsciously internalizing things, which is probably gonna happen,
it's probably inevitable, but yeah.
Right. For the most part, I don't use it for that, if that makes sense.
No. I hope it doesn't. I didn't think it was like nefarious or something. I felt it was more like a good thing, right? Everyone has these games available to watch. You know what I mean? You're not seeing anything more than anyone else. It's just that you're doing it, so you are watching everyone. That's what I mean. Yeah.
And I guess to tack on to that point, it's important that I convey what the team is trying to do while I'm casting, so people that are watching, that might play at a lower level can see that and be like, oh, I never thought to do that, right? Like, let me start doing that. So it's more so from like an educational standpoint rather than my own. Well, because like I already know, I like to think I know most of that already, right? Like, okay, they're doing that. Yeah, that makes sense. Whatever. I try to convey that from an educator's standpoint, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. I was trying to think. Did we talk? Oh yeah, Squadron versus Imperial. That was another one of the matches. That's another great one. Skull and Imperial, two really high level fleet battles teams. So that
one's gonna be really interesting to watch. Both those teams are pretty well balanced in terms of a match,
and they're both playing really well right now too. So that'd be interesting to see. That one could go either way. How far along are we for the play-in against Randalorians? What is it that hasn't been decided yet?
We've done one game.
Yeah,
we've got one more game to do, then so one more game to determine who's playing in the finals of the play-in, if that makes sense. So 2 more games.
Yeah, as of recording, we're not quite sure yet, but we will be soon. That'll be decided. This weekend, it looks like. So the 5th of March is when it's all going to start for the playoffs. After we don't have I have the dates in front of me for these ones. I don't have the play-in date. Yeah, so it's the March 5th and 6th and 7th. Basically, all the first round's going to start.
Right. So, yeah, that Gray Squad Cheese versus Rancors on the 6th, and Skull versus Imperial Guard on the 6th. 7th will be the third play-in, actually. So the last play-in,
Remnant and Royal Guard. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last of the quarterfinals
Mhm.
there.
Man, that's so exciting. Yeah, definitely going to check that out. I mean, this is going to be some very high level squadrons. And I mean, all month we've got so many events going on here. It's going to be hype. I'm trying to think. Also, Scalp, we should, I guess, wrap up here with your socials and everything. Why don't you drop those again?
Yes, so I stream a lot of the time throughout the week on Twitch at Scalpwakka. My YouTube's under the same. Twitter is under the same thing as well. That's Scalp, like your scalp, and then Wacka, WAKKA. My Instagram is Zach_Butchery, but it's kind of dry. So
And I will link all of those in the description below. Man, thank you so much for being on the podcast again. It was great to have you back. And I mean, I really feel like we talked about a lot of
yeah.
really good stuff for the community. This is another
Yeah.
one for them to dig
Well-
into and get a lot of info from.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for letting me ramble.
Oh man,
I guess I
you
can
don't
do that
understand. I
sometimes.
love it, Scalp. I'm, you know, I'm a junkie for this stuff. So to get an hour to just pick your brain has been amazing for me too.
Anytime, man. Always a pleasure.
All right, well, thank you for being on, and I will see everyone else on the next episode of the Star Wars Squadron podcast. Take it easy.
Control. 517 Scanner Control.